The Nuggets have dug a hole so deep, the coach had 3 players he could trust against OKC. 3 guys. And Nikola Jokic still drugged that roster to a Game 7 against the best team in the NBA. That is how talented this man is. Oh, but none of those teammates has ever been an all-star. In fact, the average MVP since 1984 has had an average of 16 teammates, either all-star, all-NBA, all-defense. But Jokic has had 0. 16-0. How did he ever win a championship? Because Jokic is that good. But his team is failing him like LeBron's first stint in Cleveland. But unlike LeBron, Jokic has no plans on leaving Denver. So they can either waste the rest of this loyal dude's prime or try to save it. But building a championship contender with Nikola Jokic is tougher than it looks. Here's why. But the conference finals are starting. Just a few weeks left to play NBA on Underdog. I love playing Pick'em where I pick higher or lower for whatever games I'm going to watch that night. Not many left to choose from, but I know I'm going to have even more fun watching with a little action on the line, or a lot, because they've got a game called Ladders. If you go into Originals, you'll see it right there next to Streaks. You just build your team, and the better your team does, the more you can win, up to 100x your cash. So let me give you my best 2 picks for tonight. First is Pascal Siakam, lower on his points, rebounds, and assists. Then Karl Anthony Towns, higher on his points and assists. And best of luck if you're tailing those picks. Check out this map. Underdog's available in all these highlighted states like Texas, where I live, California, or Florida with their game champions. If it's your first time signing up, use the promo code AMHOOPS. Nothing else helps out the channel more. Plus, you get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a special free pick. So Denver fired both their head coach and GM 11 days before the playoffs. And it turns out, head coach was a pretty good idea. Players were tired of his style. I mean, Michael Malone was constantly in their face like a mean stepdad. So people were happy to get this dude, who kind of looks like an accountant. Much better. But why GM Calvin Booth? I mean, didn't this roster just win a championship like 2 years ago? Yeah, but a different guy built that team. His name is Tim Connelly, who's now at Minnesota in back-to-back conference finals. But since he left, Booth tore this team apart like he was trying to ruin it. First, he let go of role players like Bruce Brown and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Okay, ownership didn't want to pay him, but instead, Booth signed Reggie Jackson and Dario Saric to replace them. Only team in the NBA to use a mid-level exception in back-to-back years. That's who you went with? Turns out Jackson's so bad, he basically out of the league now. Saric fell out of the rotation in November. Do you know how bad you need to be for the coach to pull the plug in November? But if they had used that money on a reliable rotation player, they could have beat OKC. So what about the draft? Well, Booth had picks late in the first round and early in the second. He acquired Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett, and Hunter Tyson with much better prospects still on the board. But that's not even the worst part. He chose to give those kids guaranteed contracts for players who barely see the court. Why? That killed Denver's bench even more, because now you can't fill out the roster with actual NBA-ready players. But the killer in today's NBA is wasting money. You cannot do it, okay? The second apron kills teams who make even a little misstep on contracts. But the Nuggets made 2 gigantic mistakes. First, they gave Michael Porter Jr. a max contract, then extended Zeke Naji for $32 million. Now, MPJ was not Calvin Booth's fault, but those deals are like a weight around Nikola Jokic's neck, dragging him to the bottom of the ocean. He can't swim like that, let alone win a race. So Denver has failed their superstar, but what can they do to fix it? Well, that's where trades come in, because the Nuggets were so thin that their top 4 outside of MPJ led the NBA in playoff minutes. And you'd think that's about Tom Thibodeau's Knicks, right? No, it was about the Nuggets. But here's another crazy stat. In games 1 through 6 against OKC, Jokic had 88 potential assists, but his teammates only converted 34 of them. That's a rate of just 38.6%. But in the regular season, Jokic averages 62% on assists. So dude was just creating shots left and right, but it was brick city out of his co-stars. And notice we did not mention Russell Westbrook here, because lots of people are going to blame Russ as the problem, but they're wrong. Oh, you might have been able to blame him when he was on a max contract, but he made $3.3 million, okay? And they might not win that Clippers series without him. I don't care if he was bad against OKC, okay? Show me another $3 million guy who wins a playoff series. Russ was not the problem. It was the mismanagement of this team. So how do they fix it? Well, the first name people are going to mention is Giannis Antetokounmpo. And yes, it would be insane to pair the two guys who won 5 of the last 6 MVPs. But here's what Denver's got to offer. They've got first-round swaps in 26, 28, and 30, plus a pick in 2031 to trade. But only 2031 is viable, okay? Because ain't nobody wants their picks while Nikola Jokic is still around. Tradable vets include MPJ, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, and Christian Brown. But trade any of them, especially Gordon, and you're even more thin. Then there's young guys like Peyton Watson and Julian Strother, who honestly aren't really that valuable. So teams like the Rockets and Spurs would blow their offer out of the water, okay? Giannis is a pipe dream. The next name is Kevin Durant, which seems kind of crazy at 37 years old, but The Athletic reported the Nuggets have looked at KD in the past, like seriously looked at it. Michael Porter Jr., of course, would be the guy going out in any of those deals. Contractually, he's the only one who makes sense. Oh yeah, contractually. What about value? I mean, the idea of Michael Porter Jr. is valuable. 27 years old, 6'10", high volume shooter. Who doesn't want that? But this dude goes from nearly 20 points a night in the regular season to 13 in the playoffs. From an elite shooter to slightly above average. For example, in 14 games these playoffs, he scored over 20 points one time. Instead, he had single-digit scoring in 8 games. Now, he was dealing with a shoulder injury, but it's not that unusual for MPJ, okay? We kind of expected this. And you cannot make that mistake in this new CBA. You cannot pay a role player like a star or it crushes your chances. So when people ask, why does Jokic not have better teammates? This is why. The Nuggets made gigantic errors and are paying for it. And can they even afford to trade a role player like MPJ? I mean, the guy is the best three-point shooter on the team that takes the least threes in the NBA. Kinda tough to win in 2025 like that. So Kevin Durant might actually be the perfect replacement, but do the Suns really think that partnering MPJ with Devin Booker is an upgrade? So even Kevin Durant sounds like a fantasy. If MPJ is the best that they've got to offer, none of these trades are going to look good. So who else could they deal? Well, first is Aaron Gordon, who might be the best role player in the NBA. Or Jamal Murray, who has like half a decade built in of chemistry with Nikola Jokic. Plus, he's not on a great contract either. Dude like plays his way into shape every single season, but he's on a max contract the next 4 years. You're never going to get equal value for that. So if people say, hey, Jokic will never win another championship, sounds crazy, but even Jokic himself was asked, hey, can this group win another title? He said, well, we didn't, so obviously we can't. And I got bad news for Joker. Back in the day, depth didn't really matter all that much in the playoffs, but now the best teams roll like 9 players deep. This new CBA was designed to prevent dynasties by forcing them to save money and let go of talented vets. That's why we're about to have 7 different champions in 7 years, which we haven't seen since the 1970s. So even if you have an MVP like Nikola Jokic, it is really hard to create a sustained contender, but downright impossible if you make the mistakes that the Denver Nuggets have. But hey, at least they're not alone. The Celtics are in a similar situation. We all thought potential dynasty, but now Jason Tatum is out, and by the time he gets back, that team will look completely different. So I had to look at the C's offseason and which players are about to go.